Have you ever met someone who seemed emotionally distant or cold, but you couldn't shake the feeling that their silence was hiding something deeper? What if I told you that this emotional distance wasn't a flaw, but a defense mechanism built over time, a shield they developed as a response to past pain? In this video, we're going to explore the psychology behind this emotional detachment, how unresolved pain shapes someone's personality and drives much of what we may label as difficult behavior. Stick around until the end, because what might appear as someone being hard to love could actually be someone who's still figuring out how to survive. But what if the real issue isn't their unwillingness to connect? Could it be that their avoidance is rooted in pain they've been carrying for far longer than you can imagine? Today, we'll dive into the powerful insights of Carl Jung and uncover how unhealed emotional wounds manifest in ways we may not even notice. From the masks people wear to the coping mechanisms they develop, we'll explore how all of this impacts relationships and life choices. This journey isn't just about understanding others. It's about seeing how awareness and healing can transform deep, invisible suffering into a path toward growth. You might think that someone who seems emotionally unavailable is simply hard to reach. But what if the truth is that they've learned to build walls to protect themselves from pain? As we explore their behavior, we'll see how these invisible shields, shaped by past trauma, become a central part of their identity. Some people don't look wounded. They appear composed, perhaps even distant or indifferent. But beneath the surface, they may carry a quiet pain that hasn't been processed. This pain doesn't just disappear, it transforms, retreating into the unconscious mind. According to Carl Jung, unresolved suffering doesn't vanish. It reshapes how someone navigates life. It hides not in their words, but in their behavior. Withdrawal, hypervigilance, emotional detachment. These patterns often start to resemble their identity, but they're not truly who they are. They're who they had to become in order to survive. Jung called these hidden responses complexes, emotional structures formed around unprocessed pain. These complexes are not flaws. They are protective systems built instinctively by the psyche. They respond automatically, often before the person is even aware of it. And here's the key. They don't just disappear with willpower. These defenses begin to shift only when they are brought into conscious awareness. The deeper the wound, the more refined the armor. For many, especially those who've been hurt in their most intimate spaces, like family, trust, or love, the cost of vulnerability becomes too high. Emotional exposure starts to feel like a threat, and so they build walls, detachment, skepticism, and relentless self-reliance. It's not that they don't crave closeness, it's that closeness once led to pain. The unconscious remembers, always scanning for signs of danger. The past doesn't just fade away, it becomes a filter through which everything is seen. Over time, these defenses solidify into what Jung called the persona, the social mask we wear to interact with the world. For many, this persona evolves into more than just a mask. It becomes a role, a performance, a shield. They appear strong, composed, even capable. But behind that surface is often someone who learned early on that being seen meant being hurt. What began as a survival tactic eventually becomes part of their identity. And the more seamless their performance, the harder it becomes to truly connect with others. The mask may be effective, even admirable, but it's also lonely. Healing doesn't require us to tear it off all at once. It simply asks us to loosen our grip and allow our true selves to breathe through the cracks. However, not all pain creates walls. Sometimes pain refines us. For some, emotional suffering doesn't lead to detachment. It heightens their sensitivity. These individuals develop an uncanny emotional intuition, feeling everything around them. They pick up on the smallest shifts in tone, in silence, in the way others feel. They comfort instinctively because they understand how isolating pain can be. Jung referred to this as the archetype of the wounded healer, someone who can heal others precisely because they carry their own wounds. But like all gifts, this one has a shadow. When this deep empathy isn't grounded in self-awareness, it can easily slip into projection. So what happens when we become too absorbed in others' pain without truly understanding our own? Let's continue and explore how this empathy can shift from a gift to a burden, and what it takes to truly heal. Picking up from where we left off, we've seen how unresolved grief can quietly shape our behavior, often hiding behind masks of strength or indifference. But what happens when that grief isn't just a memory? It's an ever-present force still shaping how we live, feel, and connect with others? Some forms of grief, as Carl Jung would say, don't have a name. They're not about the loss of a loved one, but about the absence of something essential, the love that never came, the safety that never existed, the apology that was never offered. These are invisible losses, and they can often be the most profound. When these unspoken losses are not fully acknowledged, they don't stay in the past where they belong. Instead, they echo through the present, influencing the way we interact with the world and with others. Jung famously said, "What we do not bring to consciousness appears in our lives as fate." And this fate can show up in the form of repetitive patterns, feelings of loneliness, chronic overthinking, emotional disconnection. In response, many people retreat into their minds, trying to make sense of the world, but also trying to escape the pain they don't want to face. The mind, Jung said, offers structure and logic. It gives us explanations, but it doesn't offer healing. And here's the catch. Insight alone isn't healing. Simply understanding why you're hurt doesn't make the pain go away. The key to healing, according to Jung, is not intellectual understanding. It's feeling. It's allowing yourself to experience and process the emotions that have been buried deep within. Emotions like grief, fear, and anger. For those who've suffered deeply, feeling is often something the ego learned to avoid. It's the very thing that feels too overwhelming, too unsafe to confront. But healing truly begins when we allow those emotions to resurface, when we let them pass through our bodies, when we speak them out loud, and when we grieve. Grief, when honored, becomes a doorway, not to erase the past, but to give it a rightful place in our lives. The scar remains, but the wound no longer bleeds. And when pain is named, felt, and accepted, it stops shaping the future. It no longer controls how we react to the world around us. Instead, we shift from living in defense to living in presence. When we allow ourselves to feel, our psyche reorganizes. The internal architecture that was once built for survival, built on walls and avoidance, shifts to one that allows for genuine connection, true presence, and openness to life as it is, not as it was. So what may appear to others as emotional coldness, distance, or even contradiction in someone's behavior often has very little to do with their true self. It's much more about what they've endured, how deeply their pain has shaped them, and how they've learned to protect themselves from further hurt. Jung never saw suffering as the end of the story, but rather the beginning of a deeper one. Because when pain is brought into awareness, it stops defining us. It becomes a threshold, a call to a more authentic, connected existence. If this reflection resonated with you, if you've seen even a small part of your own story in what we've explored, I invite you to take a moment to subscribe to the Daily Stoic. Here we dive deep into the language of the psyche, the truths that lie beneath our behavior, and the kind of healing that starts not with external fixes, but from within, by returning to the self. And if you've made it this far, I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below with the words, "I'm learning to listen to my pain." That phrase tells me you're no longer just a passive observer. You're actively choosing awareness, and that in itself is a powerful step toward healing. Until next time, stay curious, stay compassionate, and keep walking the path inward.